Hey, this is Warren Redlick. Lucid Motors has announced or filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission plans to sell a lot more stock to raise $8 billion for the company, or to generate $8 billion in cash. It's not clear whether that's generating money for Lucid or it's some other purpose. Are you ready? Let's go! Now, for starters, a disclosure. Number one, I don't own any Lucid stock. I have no investment interest in Lucid Motors whatsoever. The other thing I would say is I've never seen something like this before. I'm giving you what I'm reading, my understanding of it. I've said something about this on Twitter. I got some criticism. I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure how I'm going to break this down is going to come down the way I'm going to say, but it's possible that I don't know what I'm talking about. So this is the introduction to Lucid's plan, what they filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. You can see right down below my finger, you can see that their offerings up to $8 billion in aggregate offering price. So $8 billion. The company is currently valued at $27 billion. And there's $8 billion in transactions that may happen over the next 3 years. That's how it's laid out. Down at the middle here, you see this up to 1.19 billion shares of common stock. That's the big nut. There's a lot of other stuff here with, 44 million shares or whatever, but this number dwarfs everything else, the $1.19 billion or 1.189 billion shares of stock. That's the big nut. So in total, we're talking about maybe $1.2 billion in stock. I'm making up the number, but I think I'm in the ballpark. And if you take the $8 billion that they claim they're going to raise, or that's going to be sold over the course of 3 years, and you figure it's about 1.2 billion shares, that's less than $7 a share. Lucid stock is currently trading around $16 a share. And if I understand this correctly, and it's certainly an argument I don't, if you've got $8 billion in transactions with 1.2 billion shares, 1.2 billion shares in total, Lucid is saying they think their stock is worth less than $7 a share, even though it's currently trading at $16 a share. That's my take on it. I'm open to other interpretations. Let me know what you think in the comments below, but let's dive in a little bit more. So Lucid is currently trading like around $16 a share. That was the price at the end of the day today. There was some fluctuation after hours where it dropped a little bit, but still around $16 a share. There are 1.67 billion shares outstanding. The public float is 538 million shares. Now, 1.67 billion minus 1.2 billion that I mentioned gets you close to this number, but I don't think that's what it is. I think there's actually more shares authorized or something like that. And you can see just really quickly, you can notice at the bottom that 22% of the float is shorted. Lucid is a heavily shorted company. There's a lot of people who think the stock is going to fall. I'm not alone. I'm Lucid Q, but I'm not alone. There's a lot of other people who think Lucid's in trouble. Another quick note, this is not surprising. Our majority stockholder, IR, as defined below, this is the Saudi private investment fund or whatever, this is sovereign investment fund of the country of Saudi Arabia, owned approximately 60.7% of our outstanding common stock. As a result, we're a controlled company and we qualify for certain exemptions from certain corporate governance requirements. Lucid doesn't have to play by the same rules as other companies. Take that how you want. They did their SPAC merger. They didn't play by the same rules as an IPO. They're a controlled company. They don't have to play by the same rules in other ways as well. Another quick detail about this, it's a filing indicating an intent to sell securities that will ultimately lead to $8 billion in transactions. But right at the top of this part, this is a question and answer within the thing. It says, Lucid is not offering or selling any new securities as of the filing of this registration statement. After this registration statement is declared effective, we may from time to time issue, offer, and sell any combination of the securities described in this prospectus in one or more offerings up to an aggregate amount of $8 billion over the 3 years the registration statement is declared effective by the SEC. If Lucid decides to raise capital in an offering under this registration statement, Lucid will describe the specific details of that future offering in a prospectus supplement. So in other words, this is just an intent or an indication we're probably going to sell or be involved in transactions that lead to $8 billion in transactions. Again, I'm not saying this is going to generate $8 billion for Lucid, but they said it's an aggregated operating amount of $8 billion. It may be that this is partly allowing the Saudis to sell out some of their holdings and other insiders to sell out some of their holdings. That's the way I read some of this. If we go back to the intro, there's an issuance of 44 million shares of stock. And then There's some stuff with private placement warrants and working capital warrants, and then allowing the selling security shareholders to sell up to 1.189 billion shares of common stock. So I think, and then there's other shares from legacy Lucid awards, other shares from private placement warrants. So there's a lot of this is letting insiders sell stock through the company. If I understand it correctly, and I'm not saying I do understand it correctly. There's a little bit more about that here. Registration statement registers the resale of up to 1.189 billion shares of common stock and up to 44 million warrants held by selling security holders. These securities previously registered, and also refers to shares of common stock held by certain of our affiliates that are party to the investor rights agreement, shares of common stock that Lucid sold in the PIPE investment, the private placement warrants are working. So these are all insider, people who bought in outside of the regular investors who bought Churchill Capital or bought stock later after the SPAC merger. These are like inside transactions or special transactions that occurred. These are people who got in cheap. They got in for $10 a share typically or less. And now these people are getting their chance to sell out. And again, this, if I'm correct that the bulk of these transactions are letting insiders sell their stock, then it doesn't generate the capital that Lucid needs to move forward because they run out of money in 2023. So if they're running, first when I saw this, I thought, okay, they're planning to raise $8 billion because they're going to run out of money in 2023 and they need money. And now it looks like the bulk of these transactions do not actually generate funds for Lucid to run their business. They're actually letting insider shareholders sell out and cash out of the company. The last thing from the prospectus or from the registration statement I want to mention is this risk. There's this section where they talk about risks that are involved with the company. And I think this has probably been in before, but this is really, really telling. Future issuances of shares of our common stock like this could depress the market price of our common stock and result in significant dilution. In other words, if you own, let's say you owned 1% of Lucid and then Lucid sells a whole bunch more stock, you now own 0.5% of Lucid. Right? Dilution's a big deal in a lot of cases, and Lucid is very, very subject to dilution. The exercise of our outstanding warrants and options would result in additional dilution. So we know that there's warrants that are involved in this deal. The market price of our shares of our common stock could decline as a result of substantial sales of common stock. Well, it looks like insiders are going to be selling 1.2 billion shares of common stock. And that could cause the market price of the shares to decline. And then if one or more of these stockholders, this is talking about all the insiders, if one or more of these stockholders were to sell a substantial portion of the shares they hold, it could cause the trading price of our common stock to decline. The risks that they predicted here are exactly what they're talking about doing. They are telling you our stock price is going to go down, shareholders are going to be diluted, this is what's going on. And I think they need to raise more money. So there's going to be more dilution further when they have to, at some point they have to generate money to keep their business running. And whether it's the Saudis giving them a loan or selling stock or something, somewhere along the way, this company has to get capital so they can continue running the business. And if you're an existing shareholder, you're going to get burned 6 ways from Sunday. That's my take on it. So I've called Lucid a fraud from September of 2020. And I think we're now seeing chickens coming home to roost. They've played this game for a while. They've gotten away with playing games for a while, but it's really starting to sink in that Lucid is a scam, Lucid is a scam, Lucid is a scam. And there's people who are going to cling to Lucid like nobody's business. For whatever reason, people cling to this story that they bought at some point early on. It's a fraud, it's a fraud, it's a fraud. They can't make cars. They can't make cars in enough volume. They can't achieve they're way off their plan from the SPAC merger of what they said they were going to achieve, and they weren't going to become profitable until like 2025. With everything going well, and everything hasn't gone well, so now their profitability is pushed off to 2026 or 2027, and they're running out of cash in 2023. So something has to give, and at some point there's going to be even more dilution. And if you're holding stock in Lucid right now at $16 a share, it's probably not going to be $16 a share tomorrow after people digest this story. You're going to get burned. And ultimately, your stock is going to be worth $7 a share if it doesn't go to zero, because fundamentally, this company can't possibly survive unless the Saudis just floated and then you get diluted with that as well. So whether you like it or not, that's my take on it. I'm Lucid Q. I think Lucid's going to fail. It's over. Lucid is the Daily Lie. You can get the Daily Lie t-shirt at elonbits.com. Please check out my other videos. Please support this channel on the Locals platform, on Patreon, or as a YouTube channel member. Links to all that in the description below. Please subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.